Once Upon a Time is a free verse that focuses on father's attitude to a cultural change and times in the past, before the incoming Western culture affected the native African way of life. In the poem, the man or the father addresses the son, telling him in a rather nostalgic manner how things used to be in the past. People were different back then. The people back then were more genuine, and it is what the speaker or the father want to do now. The speaker wanted to return or restore the world that he used to live with when he was young back then. But then, the people weren't back then. The people weren't after money, and they could look into your eyes, smile, give yours other people a real smiles. But nowadays, although they are smiling, but all of those smiles are not genuine, and it's all fake. So as you go on to the poem, the early stanzas reveals more of the negative changes that have occurred during the father's lifetime. The father is old enough to have decent human standard drop to the wayside as Western ideals. So, in this poem, Once Upon a Time, it is a nostalgic and perhaps a little ironic. So the poem is all about the speaker or the father dearly wishes to relearn how to smile genuinely, how to laugh without pretension, how to be happy without pretending that you are happy. So the speaker or the father clearly wants to get back to those times that he perceives as pure and innocent and good.
So, good day everyone. Today I will discuss the poem Once Upon a Time by Gabriel Okara. So first, let's get to know the author. So Gabriel Okara, in full name, Gabriel Imumutimi Jibaingbain Okara, was born on April 21, 1921 in Bumudi, Nigeria. Nigerian poet and novelist whose verse had been translated into several languages by the early 1960s. A largely self-educated man, Okara became a bookbinder after leaving school and soon began writing plays and feature for radio. In his poem, The Call of the River Nun, won an award at the Nigerian Festival of Arts. So, Okara's poetry is based on a series of contrasts in which symbols are neatly balanced against each other. The needs to reconcile the extreme of experience, life and death are common themes. Preoccupies his verse, and a typical poem has a circular of movement from everyday reality to a moment of joy and back to reality again. So now let's move on to the poem Once Upon a Time. So in this poem, the poet wishes that the modern world would once again become innocent and childlike. He also wishes that he could once again be as natural, honest, and innocent as when he was a child. So, and this is the poem. I will just summarize the whole idea to you. This poem begins with a series of 3 images: greeting someone, welcoming them to their house, and saying goodbye. So, the speaker of this poem tells his son how people react in those given situations. Firstly, they greet their relatives or known ones with fake smiles. So verbally, they welcome their closed ones, but mentally they keep their doors closed on them. So lastly, at the time of parting, they wear a fake smile again and bid each other, hiding their selfish emotions. Thinking about such things, The speaker becomes so sad that he somehow wants to unlearn such void customs. He wants to be a child again like his son and relearn the art of innocence and pure happiness. So, the poem Once Upon a Time written by Gabriel Okara compares the behavior of people in the olden days with that of the modern people. So in the olden days, people were genuine. There was no hypocrisy in their words or deeds. They said what they meant without any diplomacy. The conduct of modern man, on the other hand, is hard to understand because he puts on so many faces and says things which he does not mean. Like honest speech. Hospitality has also become a thing in the past. So the arrival of the guest or a visitor seems to be an intrusion on one's purse and privacy. So in the latter part of the poem, the poet also gives a contrasting picture of the simplicity and innocence of children and the pretensions of cunning adults. The poet is deeply pained by the conduct of the modern man. He longs for the innocence of a child and also reverts to the man's earlier behavior before the influence of materialism of the West. So now, let's talk about the structure of the poem. This poem consists of 43 lines that are separated into 7 stanzas. So each stanzas does not contain a specific line count. The lines are segregated according to the subject matter. This poem is written from the point of view of a first person speaker. So it's a lyric. As the text does not contain a specific rhyming scheme, it is a free verse poem. In some instances, readers can find rhyming but they don't occur in a regular fashion. Apart from that, so the poem is mostly composed of the iambic meter with some metrical variations. The next is the literary used in the poem. Literary devices. Okara's poem, Once Upon a Time, contains the following literary devices that are not limited to the devices mentioned below. The first one is enjambment. Enjambment occurs when a line is cut off before its natural stopping point. It occurs throughout the text. For example, they used to laugh with their hearts and laugh with their eyes. The next one is repetition. Repetition is an important poetic technique that sees writers reuse words, phrases, images, or structures multiple times within a poem. In the first stanza, the word laugh is repeated for the sake of emphasis. A similar scheme also goes for the following stanza. The words shake hands are repeated in there. So the next one is a metaphor. A metaphor is used to describe an object, person, situation, or action in a way that helps a reader understand it without using like or as. So Okara uses several metaphors in this poem such as ice block, cold ice, home face, or office mates, or office face, etc. The next one is simile. A simile is a comparison between two unlike things that uses the words like or as, with all their conforming smiles, like a fixed portrait, and shows only my teeth like a snake's bare fangs. So the next one is the imagery. Imagery refers to the elements of a poem that engage a reader's senses. These are important sights, sounds, feelings, and smells. This poem contains several images that include shaking hands, smiling, and facial expressions in different situations. So, the next literary device is alliteration. Alliteration is a technique that makes use of repeated sounds at the beginning of multiple words, grouped together. It is used in poetry and prose. So, show me, son, but believe me. I will discuss the symbolism. The poem has mixed feelings of childhood, regret, and innocence. The child in the poem is a symbol of innocence, purity, enthusiasm, happiness, and genuineness, lacking in society. The child represents the group of people who have not been affected by Western culture and abode by their own culture. So the poet, struck by a sense of self-loathing and regret, turns to his son in his time of need and ask him to help him unlearn whatever he has learned and help him regain his childlike innocence. Innocence is a fading aspect in man's society. People always appear deceitful and cunning. The child, however, is a picture of innocence and acts without any malice or ulterior motive. The man wishes to gain this innocence from his son, though he fails to realize that innocence is not learned, a state of mind. Once it is lost, it is gone forever. Lastly is, we have the theme. So, Okara incorporates the themes of cultural crisis, selfishness, loss of innocence, and real emotion versus fake expression in his poem, Once Upon a Time. The main theme of this poem is the cultural crisis, though readers cannot find this theme directly in the text. It is an integral part of the poem. For example, when the poetic persona speaks of the contemporary fashion of greetings, he actually speaks on the crisis in his indigenous culture. The sense of loss is reflected in his tone. Besides, the loss of innocence is another theme of this poem. This theme is integrated into the lines. The lines is, I want or to unlearn all these muting things. How people express their fakeness by hiding their real emotions also gets portrayed throughout the text. And that's all. Thank you.